Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me. I'm Luca Martinelli, Head of Unit TED and EU Public Procurement. Welcome to this reusers workshop, reusers of TED data. We have about 140 registered participants who are progressively joining us. I think some of you must have participated to the last reusers workshop, which was actually in the context of the so-called TED Together event that we had at the end of last year. It was at the beginning of November, 4th November of last year, and actually, I would like to now go through the agenda that we have for today. After my short introduction, we'll have two presentations this morning and two presentations this afternoon from my colleagues, followed by a Q&A session. I repeat, the first presentation will be by Carmelo Greco on TED API changes. We'll then have the TED presentation of the TED Open Data Service by Natalie Muric and Vittorio Bentivogli, followed by a Q&A session. And after the lunch break, Carl Ferrand will update us on SDK planning, and Nicole will present the preliminary results of a survey we had on the use of reuse documentation. The survey is still open, so these are preliminary results, and of course there is an invitation with these two for those that didn't reply yet to do so. And then again a Q&A session. Let me say a few words. I mentioned December last year. Actually, December, the new commission took office. We have a fully empowered commission. And actually, as you are probably aware, public procurement is high on the agenda of the new commission, as there is a clear announcement that public procurement rules will be reviewed. And colleagues in DG Grow have already started the process. There has been extensive consultation of stakeholders, an evaluation is ongoing, and a first commission proposal revising the directive is expected at the beginning of next year currently. What it is clear is that the directions of this revision will be simplification and reduction of the administrative burden in particular for businesses, but also public administrations. And what is clear is that, again, the digital priority and the focus on fully exploiting the potential of data is also high on the Commission priorities, and definitely here we can play a role in the collaboration between what we do in publishing notices, in exploiting, reusing the data that are part of the notices here. I think we are really in the middle of a process not only of digitization but also of datification of public procurement. I would like also to remind you that at the end of the year, in November 26th, 27th, we'll have a second TED Together event, which will be open not only to reusers, but also to senders and to the standardization community. So it will be, again, an hybrid event, both in presence and online, but we'll advertise this later this year. What is important is that you pencil this in your agenda. Some housekeeping rules and logistics. We already went through the agenda, but I would like to remind you that we will use Slido for interaction. I mean, we invite you to post the questions, write your questions on Slido by using the code, the QR code that you see there. We'll also have, we'll try to reply to your questions as we normally do during the Q&As, so there will not be replies written on Slido. And if you're not able to reply in this workshop, we'll do that afterwards, as we normally do. We'll also use Slido for some interactions, some polls, surveys, and actually I will now give the floor here to my colleagues. I'm here with Cindy Slugocci and with Jule Hans and Laura von Weissenberg is online. Actually, we can start, I think, with the first icebreaker question. So to you, Laura.
Can you now hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very much, Luca. So before we go down to the real business, we thought we would warm up a little bit by asking you some questions. And since today in Luxembourg we have this fantastic sunny weather, which is a bit of an exceptional situation, we are wondering what the weather is like where you are. So let's see. Are we the luckiest ones in Europe and maybe beyond? I don't know where people are joining from. Or, oh, sunny everywhere. That sounds fantastic. Shiny, somebody says. Oh, windy as well. Warm, but rainy. So it seems that not everybody has full sun like here. And I guess by now, almost 20 degrees, which, as I say, is something extraordinary for our Luxembourg circumstances. Okay, so, oh, Sweden is cloudy, windy, and 10 degrees. Sorry about that, guys. I can relate to that. I used to live in Sweden for 7 years, and I was always waiting for spring to come. And everybody was telling me that it would be in late May, and I was getting a little bit nervous already beginning of March. So I feel you. Okay. Sunshine in other places. Good. I think that we can maybe gradually move on to more business related matters. So we can move to the next question, where we are asking how many previous reusers workshops have you attended? Here, the idea being that we would like to understand if this is the first time you're joining us. Oh, it's raining in Madrid as well. That's also extraordinary, I guess. I don't know. So let's see. Do we have any first comers? Yes, we do. Okay, 2 and 4. Okay. Only one, some people, all of them, some people, great. So then you know everything. We don't need to explain any of the intricacies of how to reuse the data. Although there are always updates, I think it's good to attend. As Luca mentioned, now we are on a 2-yearly basis with these workshops. So we have one in usually in spring, and then we'll have the TED together in autumn. Good. It looks as if many of you are regulars of these meetings, but we do have a lot of people who are here for the first time, of those that have voted. So I am not sure now how many people were online. Let me check. So over 70 people. I only have 29 answers. But I think that's already good because it gives us an indication of your previous knowledge of the use of the data. So I think that with this, I will move on to introducing my colleague whom most of you who have been here for a long time know, Carmelo Greco, who will be presenting the changes that have occurred recently in the TED API.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carmelo Greco, and I'm in charge of the TED website. Today, I will make a presentation on the TED API changes. In the agenda, there are three topics, mainly topics. The first one is the TED API single domain api.ted.europa.eu, and the second one is the change in the TED Search API. So as since 1 month, define a single domain api.ted.europa.eu to access to all endpoint, API endpoint to make the following operation. The first one is to convert XML notice from the TED old TED XML format to eForm notice. The second one is validate notice for submission for publication. The third one is to submit notice for publication. The fourth one is to visualize notice before submission for publication. And the last one is the TED Search API to search and retrieve published procurement notice from TED website. If you want to access to the documentation, you can find the link. Concerning the TED Search API, now we have two URL for the same endpoint. With these two URL, you can access the Search API. The primary URL is the URL that you know. It's api.ted.europa.eu/v3/notice/search. It is included in the single domain, and there is a secondary URL which starts with TED web and .TED api.ted.europa.eu/v3/notice/search. So we have the secondary URL in case the primary URL is not available. Just to concerning the TED Search API, since the implementation of the eForms SDK 1.14, we included about all metadata fields are searchable. So there are about 1,250 search fields. And what you have to know is that the search field have aliases. So this means that you can find the same information using alias. For example, if you want to search notice based on the publication date, you can use three aliases. The first one is publication-date. The other one is BT05A notice, which is the metadata field. The metadata field as search field. And the last one is PD. It is the old search field used in the old TED website to find the TED schema notice, the old eForm. And I put at the bottom of the slide online documentation to go to the help page or to the docs.ted.europa.eu. And here I put also for useful information. With this link, you can have access to the documentation to give you the support. And I thank you. And if you want, you can also call the TED Help Desk using this link to access to the search form. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmelo, for this presentation. We will take questions at the end after the upcoming presentation. So I will now invite my colleagues Natalie and Vittorio to take the floor, and they will present the TED Open Data Service. So here we are introducing to you, and we've been doing this gradually, another way of reusing TED data. And the colleagues will go into the details of what you can do, how you can do it using the SparkQL queries, what is available, and so on and so forth. So I hope that the colleagues are there and they are ready. Natalie or Vittorio, who is going to start? Let's see.
So we are going to talk about the TED Open Data Service. Basically here we are talking, all this is about another way to share, use, and reuse data. So as some years ago, Tim Berners-Lee created or started to share these standards to allow people to ask for information, to access computers, to access information using a browser, there was an evolution on that. Then he had a vision that as people can share information and ask for information, but there was no structured or unique way to do it, it was very difficult for computers to share data and for applications to talk to each other. So a human can see information and can find his way, but there was something missing. Computers needed to be able to analyze data, share data, and when we say data, I would say information, because the idea is to give some more meaning in a way that not only humans can understand it, but also machines. That's the spirit of open data in general, and we take it to disseminate and also publish our information in a way that gives users, and of course your users, another way to work with data and with information. Okay, so then we have the TED Open Data Service. As we said, this is the spirit of this presentation. And to access the data, we have different ways. One is the website. As I said, it's a website using HTML and modern technologies that is intended for humans. So it allows users to search and browse notices. Notices are envelopes that transport important information about e-procurement. Then we have the API. The API is one step ahead that gives applications a way to access information in our repository and get notices and extract certain data from the notices. It's intended for applications, but it's a very traditional way of integration. That means you need to know the API. As Carmelo mentioned, we have a lot of possibilities for searching information, filtering information, displaying, downloading, translating information. In the API, we can do that programmatically, but we need to know the API. So there had to be another way, and this other way is the Open Data Service. So it follows the principles of linked open data. So it allows not only to produce human readable information, but also machine readable information. So computers, as Tim Berners-Lee dreamt, can share information and can work cooperatively towards some kind of goal like analyzing, integrating information from different sources, and providing a more, I would say, a richer experience into the procurement information that we have. So it allows us to select, query, and download data. And as you see, we don't say only notice, because we have an ontology. This ontology allows us to describe concepts, relationships between different entities, categories. So it allows us to structure information. We have our e-procurement ontology that it's basically has been created to address the needs of procurement in the European space. And using the procurement and our open data service, you can really dig with far more power into the information that we have. So then, who can use this service? So basically, institutional and corporate users on one side, policymakers, market analysts, tenderers, and also individuals, because it allows us to analyze data, explore relationships, filter, even make calculations, so really get some useful information out of the data, so not only raw data. So what's the difference from TED API? I believe I already mentioned that. So the TED API is very structured. It allows us basically to download notices given certain criteria. Of course, it lets us use different formats, but it's notice-centered. Then we have the TED Open Data. And we don't say still service because we reserve that name for an application. So you can search all or any notice data, and you can also focus on other entities like organizations, different classifications. We'll see that a little bit later. So you can also download data if you need it. That's mostly for human consumption, but you can also download it in different formats like JSON and you can use or XML, and that is more, let's say, useful or easier to digest for an application or for a computer. So there's a paradigm shift in the TED API. We're talking about documents. In the open data side, we're talking about data, and we can also say information, because it's richer. Data is something raw, information is something where you can really analyze, extract some meaning, and reuse that information for other purposes. So, as we said, in order to be able to use this fantastic technology, we need to understand or describe what we have there. And for that, we have an ontology. As I said, an ontology gives you concepts, relationships, properties, and that's expressed in this ontology. We have different modules of our ontology. As you see, the green boxes. We have the EPO core. We call EPO our e-procurement ontology. So in the future, I will use EPO. And then we have, of course, a part of the ontology describes notifications, submissions, the awarding process, so all the steps involved in e-procurement. We have a standard vocabulary, as you see. We have around 73, exactly now, 73 code lists. The information used in this ontology and the tools that we will see is machine and human readable. And this is important. We have been working on this for some time, and now we have, our intention is to have complete coverage of the life cycle of public procurement. And it enables linked open data. We have several initiatives around open data. One that is very well known and that's we are promoting, and in general the organization is promoting, that is are the data spaces. One of the data spaces is the public procurement data space. We work with them really closely, and on the right you can see that we have the PPDS that basically has information about procurement. Another view of that, it uses a similar technology, but it has different objectives. It allows you to access information not only from our notices, so not only from TED, but also from selected countries, since they gather, collect, and in a way harmonize data for use. And then on the other side, we have our TED Open Data Service that focuses on allowing you to reuse the information in TED. So in a way they are similar because they both have a view of TED data or TED Open data. PPDS is a bit different as it collects information about different sources. This could be countries. The access policies are different. Ours is totally open because what we have demanded. Oh, sorry, there was something talking. There was some echo. Okay, I'll continue. So the use cases can be different, but the technology is kind of similar. The benefits of our TED Open Data Service is it's open. It's available now. You can use it now. We are improving, we are refining it, but you can use it now. And there is an application to use this data. And you can take it as we said, raw data, spreadsheets, XML data, JSON data. So different formats for different uses. Okay, now a bit about the technologies that are involved. Ontologies, we already described what they are. So it's a way to formalize how different elements or entities link together and what the different properties mean and how we can use them. Then there are these, at the bottom, you see these RDF triples. They are at the heart of the semantic web, or the Web 3.0, as it was called. The internet has been evolving. So we have the internet for humans, then we have the internet of things, then we have the internet of machines, or the semantic web. So machines can exploit it, and RDF is a key part, because we need some kind of protocol or way to describe things, and it cannot be a table, it cannot be an SQL table. We need something different, and the key in RDF is the resource, because it's basically a resource description framework. It allows to describe things in a very organized way, and it's based around the concept of triples. What is a triple? A way to describe something. So we can say that we have a subject, we have a predicate, and we have an object. So we have something that has some kind of thing, and then we mention the thing. That seems very simple, but it allows us to express information in a structured way that machines can understand. And of course, we need first a way to structure or describe this graphically to understand these relationships. There is where knowledge graph appear, and they give us this way of navigating through different, going from one entity to another. That's very interesting because it allows us to get some more insight that only reading a notice, for instance, but it has all the information about relationships among notices and about different entities in e-procurement. And for that, we need a language. I imagine most of you know SQL, so it's a structured query language. It allows to basically get information from, I would say in general, tables, because we have different columns, we have different rows, so it's like having a big spreadsheet where you can extract information, process information, filter. But a knowledge graph is a totally different creature. So you need a different language that understands these RDF triples and expresses what we need in that way. That's Sparkle. So as SQL is for tabular data, Sparkle is for a knowledge graph. And you can start to see the complexity of this because it allows us really to navigate. And importantly, the meaning of Sparkle. Sparkle is one of strange way of describing the concept. So it's called, or that acronym means Sparkle Protocol and RDF Query Language. So we express what we need, also following some kind of triple structure, and we get information. So the ontologies, along with the RDF and the Sparkle, is at the heart of our vision of the semantic web in the way we adopted it for e-procurement. Where are we now? Because this is an ongoing effort, and we are taking the TED notices, and we are populating what it is called a triple store, that is a database for open data. And where we are, our idea is by the end of 2025, we are working hard towards that goal, is to have all the eForms that are available by the end of 2025. But where are we today? Well, we have all the information about standard result notices that follow the directive 2014-24. And at the moment, we have all the information since March 20 of last year. And we also have the competition notices since March of 2023. So, of course, it is still not perfect. We still don't have every information about every notice, but we are getting there. And it's good to be prepared for it because you can already get some insight from the information we have. Okay, now we will move to a demo. I hope that Murphy doesn't play here, and we will see. Remember I told you the open data, or TED open data, is the way we call our information, but we have a service, we have an application, because we need you to use this, because we need to learn from you how you use it, what you need, and we will help you, we will assist you, and we will use your input to drive the evolution of our tools. But we need a user-centered tool that you can use to explore the information we have available. So now we will have a demo, make it work with you, but some pointers that you can take and you can use to reproduce your demo on your premises. You only need a browser. So first, you have our documentation site or developer documentation site in docs TED Europa EU. There you will find a section that is related to the TED Open Data Service, and it also provides a link to our tool. Then at the end of this presentation, we will hand you a copy of a Sparkle query that we will use for this, but you can create your own. And finally, the application. So it's a TED Sparkle editor, because it's a Sparkle editor, but it connects to Cellar, that is our triple store. And it allows you to test queries, explore information, export it in different formats, and use it in your applications. In the future, you can use this also to adapt your applications to directly consume data and also adapt to the evolution of our ontology. So we said we explore data, we query data, but what can we get? And here are some ideas for you. You can, for instance, using Sparkle, ask the TED Open Data Service to give you all procurement notices on a given date or on a given, that were published on a given date or on a given period. You can retrieve information not only about notices, but also about other entities like contracts, for instance, some contracts that have been concluded and have been imported into our triple store. And you can also retrieve information about tenders that were published or that were announced in procurement notices on a specific date, on a specific date range. And what do you get? For instance, this would be the result expressed in a table. You can get this with the Open Data Service that gives you all procurement notices published during a specific period. There you can see we have the publication number of the notice, the type of procedure, the type of notice, and the form type, I mean the TED eForm type. And as you see, it really looks like a spreadsheet, and we can reuse it in a spreadsheet. But this is a very simple query, in a very simple view of information. We can get things a bit more complicated, or more complex, I would say, not complicated. So you can retrieve information about contracts that have been concluded according to what is published on procurement notices. There we have publication number, we have the different lots, legal names of organizations involved, amounts, currencies. And all you see in blue are links. Because again, we have our notices that can have links to different organizations, they have links to different lots, and you can place them all together as a result of a query. Here we have another information that may be useful for users, getting information about awarded tenders that were announced in procurement notices. There you have the contract title, conclusion date, the different lots, amounts, and currencies, of course. Sorry. Okay, you can, using our tool, you can write and test your query. And how can you start? Because starting with some new language like Sparkle needs some kind of pointer. And you need also some examples regarding our ontology, because the ontology is quite extensive. You can go to our documentation site, but we wanted to facilitate the inception of this tool and give you some pointers about how to use it. So we have a query library. So we don't only provide a tool to access it, but we also provide some examples. And we want to expand our query library, and for that we need your feedback and your suggestions. But there are other ways to exploit information. As we said, it's an open standard format that can be understood by machines. And machine learning, artificial intelligence, LLMs is something we hear about every day. So we can use an LLM, that is a large language model, or in another way, something like ChatGPT or Claude or any of those modern LLMs to help us write the queries. So we can give it information about our ontology, and we can ask questions using an LLM. That's an evolution we plan to do, but for now, we prepared some queries for you to show how the tool works. And now to the application. So our query library can be found at data.ted.europa.eu, and that's how it looks like. Very simple. It has a query library with around 15 queries today, but we're maintaining it regularly. We have a query editor in the case you want to modify these queries or write your own. And then we have a page that returns the results in different formats as you ask the system. For instance, there I chose one of the queries that is related to notices. We categorize the different queries to facilitate browsing through this large list. And there we have a query that's related to competition notices, buyers, and their countries on a specific date. And on the right-hand side, we have a short explanation, and we have the query. And in case you want to use this query, you simply say, try this query. It will be sent to the query editor where you can change it. For instance, we provide some sample dates for you to start. You can change it, specify a range, add more properties, work with relationships, use controlled vocabularies to get human readable description of different concepts. And okay, let's see it live. Give me a second, I will switch my screen, sorry. So can you see the TED Open Data Service now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is what we're showing. We have our homepage, that's the presentation. Important in yellow, this is a pre-release of a tool, so it's likely you will find some glitch or something that is not quite straightforward to do. Again, if you read on the last paragraph, this project or this application is hosted in GitHub, and we have a GitHub discussions page for you to give us our feedback, suggestions, questions, doubts, report backs if you find them. And from here, you can write your own query, or you can try our query library. So let's go for a moment to the query library. And we will start with something simple I want to show you. For instance, this will be trivial, but just to understand the query. Imagine that in a way, I want to have some information about notices published on a specific date that now I will use to browse. But it would be useful if I have a system to integrate it with our data service, and we can preview the information like this, polish our query, refine it until we get what we want. When we get what we want, we can use that query. We can use a library in different languages to use this our seller service and get directly information from our application and start integrating and working with that. So let's go to, for instance, this one. And we'll have an explanation. We have a query. This is Sparkle. This query will give us information, and the information will be the publication number, the procedure type, the notice type, and form type about all procurement notices that we have in the repository at the moment. We saw that before, that were published on a specific date. It's kind of very readable if you go through it, but we'll talk about Sparkle a bit later. Okay, I will say, let's try this query. And now I'm in the query editor. By the way, we'll see it later, but this is a reference to our EP ontology or e-procurement ontology. And we also have some open standards like XML schema and also some other prefixes that we will explore later. And basically we say, okay, give me the publication number, procedure type, notice type, and form type for the elements that we have there that have a publication date of this, and that is 6th of November of 2024. And we want to extract some information about notices. And we are interested in the publication date, in the publication number, in the notice type, the form type, and here a bit of magic, and in the procedure that is referencing that notice. So as you see, we can move through the graph and extract information. And then we say, please give me the information about the type, about the the notice in English. So we want the labels so the notice type, we want it expressed in English, the form type in English, and we also the procedure also we want it in English. And then we can say, try to find out an automatic output format. I wouldn't recommend it. I would recommend going for something that you know you need. So for you, I would say HTML. But if we're going to integrate that into a spreadsheet like Excel, Google Sheets, LibreOffice, OpenOffice, you can use a spreadsheet. And to preview how an application can use this, you can download a JSON version of the application. Sorry. Okay, we will see how this looks like. I say HTML because it's human readable. And there you have the result list. You have plenty of results. And again, we have the publication number, procedure type, it's expressed in English. The notice type is also expressed in English, and the form type. Okay, we can say this is a tool. That's what can give you, and of course you can download this information or a file containing this information. In this case, you will download an HTML file. But let's try to be a little bit more ambitious. I will go back to the query editor, and I will say spreadsheet. I will run the query. It looks more or less the same, but internally the format is a bit different. We're trying to display it in a readable way. And I will copy the URL. So this URL encapsulates not only the address of our tool, data.europa.eu, but it also encapsulates the criteria that you use to specify your query, so we can reuse it in some other place. Let's go to, here I have a small, I tried to do it only with really open data, free data, stay on the web, so something very simple, and I opened a spreadsheet. This is Google Docs, we can use Excel, of course. And here we have something that is a function that allows me to import information from the web. I will paste my query there. You see it's quite long because it has the complete query inside, and I'll press enter and let's see what happens. Oh, that was fast. So if you see, I have exactly the same information that we saw in TED Open Data, in the TED Open Data Service, but this is a spreadsheet and I can work with it. I can make calculations, I can classify, I can add columns that express some results based on other columns. And as you see, this was simple and more. I can save this spreadsheet, I can come back the following day and keep on working on my spreadsheet with the information I extracted. See, it's quite simple to use. And let me go back to the presentation. Okay. I hope you see it. And then we can query data, we can get information, and we can use this in different applications, Excel, Google Sheet. But if you have something more sophisticated, for instance, you want to extract thousands of entries because you need detailed information about every notice and a very long number of fields. You know, we have quite complex and elaborated ontologies. You can get a lot of information from there. You can use BI tools like Power BI, like Click, So you can use your own tool. You are not restricted to use the our query editor. And of course, if you are a data analyst, that is part of the audience, you can use the typical tools that are used when working with big data. You can use Python, you can use R, you can use any language that has a Sparkle compatible library, and all of them, I would say. You can work with Java, you can work with Python. So that's easy. Or you can use an interactive tool like Jupyter Notebooks, very useful to play with data and even to generate graphs based on this data, or some modern and more reactive tools like Marimo, that is like a Jupyter Notebook, but helps you not to care about the order you specify things, because Marimo finds its way to get the result based on the variables and the algorithms you provide. Okay, we saw that already. And of course, in case you need help, this is new, it's evolving, it's probably not giving the incredible complete results because we are still importing data. Go to our discussion space, there you have the pointer, it's in GitHub. And we are always ready to give you our help, to try to understand your feedback and use it to improve our tool. Okay, this is the end of the demo as we saw, and let's go a little bit into Sparkle. I have not much time, I believe, but let's try to do it quick. So here I'll show you an example query, because we just saw it globally, but there was these things about prefixes, select instructions, filters, etc. So let's show how we write, how we can write a query. So this is an example query. It will focus on notice publication details. We will take buyer information, for instance, to make it a little bit more interesting, and we will filter data for specific date, and in this case will be publication dates, and for languages. So if you remember the query, it started with these prefixes. So in an ontology has to be referenced through an URI that is exactly or similar to the way we address a web page. Remember, this is like the web for applications. So we have URIs, but URIs are not easy to remember. For instance, if I see the third one, that is our ontology, I would say data Europa U A4Z. Remembering that may be challenging. So and maybe not readable. Imagine that in every part of the query I say, okay, I want to get information about a notice. So it will be an http://data Europa UA4D ontology notice. Quite complex, quite unreadable. So then we can shorten that. We can say, give me information about an EPO notice. So it gives us a short version of that. It simplifies the query, it makes it readable, and for instance, EPO, we use it, but you can refer it as the ontology, the procurement ontology. You can use the prefix you want. This is just a convention that we follow. So we will, from here, we know that we will use some XML schema information. That means probably we're using dates or integers or strings, and we need to describe them. We are using our ontology, and we are using really well-known ontologies to describe other concepts that go through it. We didn't reinvent the wheel. We are reusing other ontologies. Then, what do we need? Then we have a select. This is like SQL. The select and the distinct means if you find two results that have the same publication, number, legal name, procedure type, and country, please show me only one. Because basically we have, for one of these entries or one of these three, let's say, set of results, maybe there are other properties and we can get duplicates. So the variables we are using here are always preceded by a question mark. That's the way Sparkle uses to describe properties. And here we have, okay, the notice ID or the publication number. In fact, the legal name, procedure type, and country. Okay, now we know what we want in terms of properties, but from where? We have plenty of notices, plenty of organizations, a lot of things in the triple store. Then we have the where. Again, like in SQL, we say here, the idea is not to go through a Sparkle query, but to give you some pointers. We say, okay, we want to get information that is stored in a graph. The triple store is also known as a graph database because it has different entities. The entities are linked, and this forms a graph, and you can navigate through this graph. We have a graph for each, let's say, for the set of information associated to notices. And there we say, okay, I have a property that is a notice that has a publication date. This comes from the ontology. It's a property that you can see. It's in our documentation. If you go to our developer documentation site, you find all the documentation and also diagrams to understand our ontology. You have a glossary to see the different properties and relationships that are available in the ontology. And we say, okay, and I will call this publication date. Remember that we were returning this. And this notice that refers to a procedure, I also want this procedure type URI. It's a relationship. Their relationships are expressed through URIs or IRIs, as some people call them. Okay. And here we explore other relationships like buyers, and from the buyer, we are taking, so for the organization that plays a role as a buyer, we have the legal name, we have the address. As we see, we are not reinventing the wheel, we are using an existing ontology that gives us some properties to define countries, streets, cities, etc. Then we can filter this, because so far this can be really a long list of things, and here we restrict it to get the information that was published on November 4, 2024. This lets us focus on relevant data and also not to get an incredibly long list of results. And there, as you see, we're using the XML schema because we wanted to specify a date. This is not simply a string. So, where can we start? First, our documentation site in docs.europa.eu. You can find plenty of examples in the document library. Let's go back there in a moment. You can also have access to the procurement ontology documentation, especially the diagrams, let you understand not only the properties, but also the relationships among different entities. Then you have our tool, our Sparkle query editor, where you can test your queries, you can download the results, you can download the links to use them in applications. And finally, we need to help each other. This is a new tool. It's still in an early stage, but it provides useful information. So we need your feedback. We are there to answer your questions. And you can use it to share your queries, because you can create queries that you share with others. There's a section for that. And the community can grow and can start building this vision of the Web 3 or of the semantic web for the procurement ontology. And we mentioned something about LLMs. You can use an LLM, but be aware of the following things. An LLM not necessarily understands our ontology, because they basically process open data and available data on the web, but they restrict the data to a certain date range because they have to process it, and probably they are not picking up our ontology. So we need to give the LLM some information about the ontology to get meaningful results. The conceptual model, so the ontology, in a format that again is open, there it says, oh, this is ontology web language. The ontology web language, along with RDF and along with Sparkle, they are at the heart of this open data initiative. So you can give this to the LLM. There are several technologies to do that. If someone is into LLMs and using this through an API, you should have heard about RAG. That is a way to augment what an LLM can generate based on information you provide. So you can provide the ontology, the LLM can understand the ontology, so it can give you answers about questions you have that are related to the ontology, like how can I create a query to get information about notices that were published on a given date and have these particular properties. So you can ask the LLM to propose questions. I would say that at this stage, it's very, very useful to learn, to explore, to get more into Sparkle. And at the end, we have to say, an LLM will not always get it right. LLMs hallucinate, so when they don't have a proper answer, they try to give you what they can. Remember, LLMs are probabilistic tools, and they will give you what they believe, and believe maybe sounds more too intelligent, but what is statistically more probable that you are expecting. And it can fail. So you can rephrase your prompt, but we already had some results. We are working on this, and of course, we welcome your questions about this topic as well. And let's be positive. We mentioned we don't have everything. The tool is new, it is evolving, but importantly, it is available. It's open to everyone. There is no login page, there is no registration, there's nothing. So please use it and help us improve the tool. So we count on you for this. So this is the end of my presentation. I don't know if I have a bit more time. I can show you a couple of more complex queries or give you a view on this. Let's talk, for instance, about organizations. Imagine that I want to get some list of winners that were announced in a notice on a given date. I can do that. So here we have the query. You see, I'm interested in publication number, the legal name of the winner or winners, the expected amount, and the currency. For notices that were published on the 4th of November of 2024, where the amounts are expressed in euros, and I'm getting the first winner of it, and I want organizations that were selected. So this is a very interesting query. It's complex. We'll not go through it, but let's see what happens. I'll say, try this query. Okay, I'll go back to the HTML format. And I'll run the query. Okay. So there we have our publication number, the name of the organization that won, the estimated amount, and the currency. And even we used our control vocabularies not to get this URI or link to this control vocabulary where we express different currencies, but we navigated there and we said, please give me the human readable description. That's an euro in this case. Okay, thank you all, and this is all that I had to present today. I hope the quality of the connection was okay, and I get back to you, Natalie or Laura.
Thank you very much, Vittorio, for this very clear presentation and for the impressive demonstration. I think Natalie would like to have an intervention before we move on to the questions and answers. And as I said, if there are questions about the presentation and the demonstration, please put them in Slido. Natalie, over to you.
Okay, so first of all, I would like to thank Vittorio for jumping in because I had some technical problems. I don't know if you can still see me. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, we can both hear you and see you.
Okay, so I think Vittorio did a remarkable job because he had to jump in at the last minute. He's only been working with us for the last 6 months, so he's just really jumped in and done a wonderful presentation. So thank you very much, Vittorio.
Thank you.
I just would like to give a brief summary, okay? That this whole open data service is actually a paradigm switch. We're moving from documents to data. So you can look at little bits of data and connect them even to things outside the notices, okay? It also gives you the opportunity to consult data, to do queries without having to download notices. Previously, you've had to download notices. Here, you don't need to. You can just go in and you can query, okay? Now, I'm showing my screen here because I wanted to explain a little bit. So we actually have in our cellar, which is where you query, we have all competition notices, all the eForms notices, and there's a daily production of these notices, so it's kept up to date. And we have all the result notice eForms type 29, which is the result notice for Directive 24. Okay, so we have that since the beginning of eForms and it's in daily production. By the end of the year, we would like to have in production all eForms. Whether the backlog will be done or not is a different matter, but things will be in daily production by the end of the year. The situation at the moment is that we're currently doing the mappings from all other notices via the ontology, okay? So that is the basic information I wanted to give you. I hope this will be useful to reusers to be able to directly query data and reuse it. Thank you. Laura?
Thank you very much, Natalie. So we have done our 2 presentations for the day. Before we move into the questions, we have received some questions. We'd still like to hear from you using Slido about how useful you think the 2 presentations have been. So if my colleagues could, so first we would like to hear about the presentation of Carmelo. So we are doing this in order to be able to improve on the presentations that we provide to you. So yeah, here I can see already some results. I would let it run for a while so that most of you, maybe all of you, could have a say to this before we move to the next one. So it's important, as I was saying, that we get your feedback so that we can provide you with content that is relevant for you. So please participate in the poll and help us improve also the presentations and the content that we make available to you during our workshops. I think that you can continue to vote. I see that there's not really very many of you that have done it so far. So I will allow for another minute or so for you to do that. And in the meantime, those of you who have had your say, think about whether you have any questions related to this morning's sessions. Afterwards, we still have half an hour to tackle some or maybe all of these questions. We will see. We will try to break on time at 12 o'clock so that that will allow all of us to have lunch, have a break, and then we will come together again at 2 o'clock, and we will deal with the agenda of the afternoon. And there will be, again, a question and answer session at the end, as we usually do, where we'll have the chance to tackle the rest of the questions. So I see that people continue to place their answers there, which is very good. I think that maybe at this point we can move to the next one, knowing that people can access both of them. So now we would like to hear, well, actually to see how useful you think that the presentation regarding the TED and Open Data Service was to you. And as I was saying, if there are questions, we welcome them in Slido, and we will deal with them one by one directly after we are done with this poll. We can start with the questions that were, so we will do it in chronological order. So the first question will be dealt with first, and then we will move down the list as we move along. And hopefully by the end of this morning session, we will have dealt with the questions that we have so far. And then in the afternoon, we'll attack the next set of questions. All right. I think that even there we have probably, so if there are still people who would like to vote, please do so. And we can slowly move towards the first question of the day. I guess my colleagues could show it on screen. Let's see. So yes, this is more of a comment there saying that the API TED.europa.eu and tedweb.api.ted.europa.eu is not available. I think that I would, for this one, my colleague Carmelo will intervene and comment.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes, I can answer to that question. I will put the link in the chat. I don't know if it is it's better. So in the chat, I put the link of the online documentation. I suggest that you read the online documentation. And okay, the URL that you see, if you use this URL as they are not available. You should use or the online documentation or to use the endpoint, but to use the endpoint, you should use a machine system or how can I say that? You can use also the Swagger to make a test. If you want, I can make a demo I will do that. Maybe it's better. Okay. Do you see my screen? Ah, okay. You see my screen, right?
We can see your screen.
Okay. So this is the URL of the swag. Is it okay? Is it okay for the size of the screen? Yes. So this is the
It's
URL.
fine, yes.
Okay. This is the URL of the online documentation of the TED Search API. And if you want to make a test, you can use this possibility. You can try it out. So, for example, I want to find the publication number, the information from the publication number. I don't know. I will start with a simple publication number, which is the first publication number of the first notice published on TED in 2025. And which field I want to get is the, I don't know, the notice type, and okay, the form type, or maybe the buyer name, like this. So via machine, it will be more simple, but okay, like that, you will see that the query is working. Delete, and I put all here. So if I execute this query, okay, this is the operation that must be done. And you can see the URL is, the endpoint is this one. And you will get here the result, where for the notice number 1 2025, the notice type is contract notice standard, and the buyer name is Javna Istovna. And if you want to double check, I will do it in TED. But I think that, yes, it's a competition, as I said, and the buyer is this one, the same as here. Voilà. That's all.
Thank you, Carmelo. This is clear. I think we can move on to the next question, which is probably also for you. I think the question was about, so let me just read it. In the meantime, the colleagues will also put it on. So in the search API, it is sometimes difficult to match the data of lots to their correct representations, especially when there are multiple values of a field inside a lot. For example, multiple CPV codes. Is this going to be changed?
No, it will not be changed. Why? Because the search, the search is based on the search on notice and not on search of data of the notice. So you can get information from the notice, but there is difficulty to make links. To solve this issue, the link data, the open data services that will be soon available, will solve the issue, and you will be able to make a complex query, as Victorio show you, to get better information. That's all. This is what I can tell you.
Okay. Thank you. So we move to the next question, which is, I used the eForms to use the data. Earlier in the XML files, I could find the related notices, and now in eForms, there is no similar way. Will that be fixed soon? Is this something for Carl, maybe? Carl, are you there?
Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me? Yes. So in eForms, the main way to link notices together is through the procedure identifier. So that was added in eForms. So all the notices in the procedure should share that identifier. That's your basic way to link them. There are a couple of other fields on this, depending on that are used for specific needs. So, for example, if there was a plan-in notice, which then led to a competition, there's a specific field that links back to the plan-in notice, because plan-in notices are not don't have a procedure identifier because they're not part of a procedure yet. So, because a plan-in notice could go to one or more procedures. So there's a specific field for that one, previous plan-in notice. There is also another field which is used if the procedure overlapped between the old format and the eForms format. So the old competition notice doesn't have a procedure identifier, it's not eForms, but the result notice in eForms can link to the competition through a specific field that was used for that. And there's another field which can be used to link can link to the notice that refers to the framework agreement if it's part of that. So generally procedure identifier, but there are a couple of other fields that help you link them together.
Thank you, Carl. I think the next question is also for you. So it reads, I notice an e-sender is using a date format that is not, well, it's more of a comment. So you'll have to give your thoughts on that.
Yes,
that is,
so normally that it's good to find out. So any thoughts? My first thought is that we should be validating that as it comes in. So we'll check. Possibly the person who asked the question, if you could post in the chat or even in Slido, just an example of a notice that has that, and we can see why it's not being validated, and also go back to the e-sender to make sure they don't send that sort of data. So this is a valuable service that you as reusers can see problems with the data that we might have not seen. So thanks for that.
Indeed, thank you very much for noticing this and alerting us. I think the last two questions are for the colleagues that have presented the open data. So I'm going to read the first one. When testing, we can only get functional result formats in XML or CSV format. JSON format is mentioned, but does not provide service. Sorry, that's okay. It's only in download, but not in the IHM. So I don't know if Victoria or Natalie want to comment on this. Anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. And I
Yeah,
hopefully the rest of the people can hear you.
as we said, the tool is in its early stage, so you will find glitches. That's the things that we want to know. But most of the relevant formats like XML, JSON, CSV, and the extraction for spreadsheets, they work okay. If you find some format that is not working as it should be, or you believe that you need any other format, please tell us and we will address that. We are aware that The tools needs to be improved, but we wanted to make it available as soon as possible, because if you don't play with the tool, if you don't learn with it, it will be really difficult to do it later. So you can start right away with that. I don't know if that answered the question.
I hope it answers the question. If not, the person will
If
come
not,
back
if not,
with another question, and we will deal with it as we move along. Thank you very much, Victoria.
Okay.
So I think the next question is: the data behind the data project already completely up to date? That is, would it theoretically be possible to use this in a production environment right now, or does it contain test data? I think Natalie wants to answer this one. Natalie?
Yeah, okay. I can't get my video to work. I'm having fun today. Okay, so now it's working. Yes,
it's
as
working.
I said earlier on, right? Forms 10 to 24, all competition notices are fully into production. The backlog to the beginning of eForms is there. So all competition notices can be used. No test data is in there. It is real data, okay? So as far as competition notices, you can use them. For result notices, the only result notice that is in there at the moment is eForms 29. So that's for the Directive 24. Again, no test data. You can use the data. From the beginning of eForms, you can do queries, and it's produced daily. For the rest, we hope to go into production. That's the planning notices, contract modification, etc. We plan to go into production by the end of the year. So I hope this answers your question.
Thank you very much, Natalie. Very clear. So I think that the most important point is to say that there is no test data in Cellar. Everything is from production. So the next question, back to relevant notices. I use the procedure ID to search the API for linked notices and extract their numbers. This helped me check against our own list to see if we've worked on them. But during scans, I often hit the API limits. So I think that maybe this is something for Carmelo to develop
yes.
on.
Yes, there are API limits, and we put some limit to protect the system. Okay, I will share my screen. So if you go on the TED website and you go to the developer corners, you can find here section fair usage policy, and there are API limits. So the limit for HTTP requests is 700 requests in the last minute. To visualize or download, it's 600 visualization or download in less than 6 minutes. And to download daily or monthly package HTTPS service, you can have 3 concurrent downloads. So if you respect that limit, you will not have issue. That's all.
Indeed. Thank you very much. So we need to allow everybody to use the system. So that's why the limits are in place. I think we have another question. The plan is to keep in the future both API TED.europa.eu and the TED Open Data Service, or do you plan to discontinue the API? I don't think we have any plans right now. I don't know if somebody wants to take this. I will say that we will keep both services for as long as they are useful. I don't know if there is anybody wants to intervene here.
Laura?
Sorry, is it you, Yanis?
Yes, it's me, yes. Hello, everyone. No, of course, we're not going to discontinue the API. The API has a different function. The Open Data Service, very different functions. So there is still going to be use cases of enterprises or private companies, anyway, smaller companies that want to download individual notices as raw data, warehouse them, analyze them, clean them up, and process them in any way they wish in order to reuse the data. And the API will remain there as a means of getting these notices. The Open Data Service, the whole goal of the Open Data Service is to bypass this heavy need of downloading and processing notices and making the data more accessible to daily usage, either for complex applications or for simpler applications that cannot afford to the infrastructure necessary to process all these thousands of notices in order to answer everyday queries about public procurement in the European Union. So no, the API will remain in parallel with the TED Open Data Service. And in general, TED has 3 pillars: the website for humans to search with their own eyes and hands, the API for applications to be able to download individual notices, as well as the Open Data Service for applications to be able to run queries against a European public procurement dataset.
Thank you very much, Yanis. Very clear. Okay, so we are moving on to the next question. Are there beginners tutorials available? I'm a brand new user, sorry, and a little confused by the Q&A, I guess, because I can't relate to any of this. I just need a simple tutorial to find the perfect tender. I'm not really sure what type of tutorial would be needed, so there maybe you can detail if you would need a tutorial on how to use the TED API or the TED Open Data. The colleagues today have done a couple of demos. If there is something else that you would need, it would be good to maybe spell it out in more concrete terms, and then we can see what we can do. Because I suppose we're not talking about the TED website, where indeed we do show how to make searches in tutorials. I think the colleagues are also preparing some tutorials for the TED Open Data. But again, if this is not what you need, and just let us know in more concrete words what exactly the need would be. And also, we would be ready to demo again during the next workshop something that would be useful for you as a new user. So come back to us and let us know exactly what that would be. With this, I would move to the next question. I hit the API limits because I couldn't find a way to fetch related notices in bulk, so I have to send a separate request for each one. Is there a more efficient way to handle this, Carmelo? What do you think?
Until now, no. I don't know. There is no efficient way for that. Make a query for each note you want to check. Maybe you can send your requests to the help desk and give us an example just to investigate what we can do.
Exactly. So basically what you're saying is send us the queries that you are using today, and we will look at them. And if there's a better way of querying, we will send you a query that is more appropriate. Good. So then we can move to the next one, which says, just to be clear, it will also still be possible to download all daily XML files in zip format. Carmelo?
Yes, it's the case today.
So there, nothing is changing. I don't know if we've given the impression that something was going to change, but actually nothing is changing in the way we provide you with the daily files. I think for the moment, I don't see more questions. We will still be here for better safe than sorry, indeed, definitely. So that's why we're here. So, you know, there are no stupid questions, so to say. The idea is that if you have a doubt, if you have a question, if there's something you don't know, many of you are new, please use the opportunity to ask these questions so that we can clarify. Anyway, all the questions will also be published, so they will also be useful for people who maybe have not attended. So don't hesitate to ask any question that comes through your mind as regards reuse of the data, obviously. So let's wait for a couple more moments to see if there are more questions from people. I don't know if any of my colleagues want to make any comments at this point in time while we're still waiting for people to maybe post their last questions for the morning. I see that the colleagues continue to give information also in the chat of the WebEx. So there is a lot of information. As I said, anyway, all the answers to the questions that have been asked today will be published on the mini site of the workshops, together with the presentations of today. So that will all of that will be available there for further reference. I still don't see new questions. So I think that if we don't have anything for now, it's fair to say that we can go and enjoy lunch or catch up with other tasks 10 minutes ahead of the foreseen ending time of this morning. And then we will come back together again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we will look at the rest of our agenda. So just a reminder, Carl will run you through the SDK plans that we have, and Nicolan will show you some of the preliminary survey results for our reuse documentation. And there, this is also an invitation for those of you who haven't contributed to this to do so, because that will allow us to improve the quality of our documentation. So thank you very much to everybody who's contributed this morning. Have a good lunch and see you in the afternoon.
Welcome back, everyone. As you can see, I'm not Laura. I will be walking you through the second part of the workshop. So welcome back. We hope you had a good lunch and you're ready for the second half. There will be 2 more presentations. So first, Carl will be presenting eForms SDK updates. And then there will be a presentation by Nicole on a survey, well, on preliminary results of a survey that we've launched on the use of the reuse documentation. We will then have 3 Slido questions. Are we sharing this? No, my colleague will share. Yeah, so it's the same QR code. You might already still be connected, but if not, you can connect again via this QR code. And then we will get to the second part of the Q&A. We've not really received many questions via lunch, so please don't hesitate to put in any questions also relating to the previous 2 presentations, not just to the ones that come now. And the last point on the agenda will be some closing remarks by Luca. Okay, but Carl, you have the floor.
So I appear as Camillo because my PC died a few minutes ago, and Camillo luckily was next door with his PC. So I'm going to give you a short presentation about the plans for the software development kit of eForms. So my name is Carl Ferrand. I work in the TED unit. Some of you might know me. On my team, we're responsible for the reception and the production of the notices, so what comes in to TED before it's published on TED. So in many cases, we should be the gatekeepers of the data you work with later. So this is just to bring up to speed what is planned for the SDK. Give you a quick recap. Some of you are new, some of you are not so new, but just to put you into the context and tell you what's on the menu for the SDK and the wider, I would say, policy background. Just a reminder of what the SDK is. So it comes from, it's a result of how we have implemented at the Publications Office what was defined by the eForms implementing regulation. So from 2019, there was a new standard for the notices called eForms. And the SDK is a software development kit used by software developers to build applications to build these notices. So it's basically the technical representation of the regulation, which had a big annex with like 300 business terms, 50 different types of forms. The core of it is an XML schema, the one you know well if you're using our data, which is based on the Universal Business Language. So it's interoperable. It makes the schema a bit more complicated, but at least the components inside are more interoperable. There's also the validation rules. So the rest of the components of the SDK are less relevant to you as a reuser, but just so you know, behind the scenes, there are rules that validate what comes in. There are code lists, which you might be using. So list of countries, list of types of buyers, so structured enumerated types. And there's also the translations for the different fields and even definitions of how the forms appear on a screen for entry and as a PDF for HTML with output. So the SDK has more components than the ones you will use on a regular basis, but that's what is available. So legally, the eForms became available in November 22, as defined by the regulation. In practice, most member states and e-senders who provide us the data went live later on in September 23 and January 24. And then since a little less than a year ago, all the notices on TED are only in eForms format. So that's the current situation. The sources of our notices come from, we have basically 52 sources of data. There's the e-notices application, which is used by buyers who don't have an e-procurement platform or a service provider. That's about 15% of our notices, but the bulk of them come from what we call e-senders, either public organizations who centralize or are the single source for the entire country. In some countries, there can be more than one e-sender, usually commercial companies who also provide the data. So the SDK changes, well, we've had quite a few SDKs over the last couple of years. The rate of change is slowing, and the changes can be for technical reasons, some other incremental improvements. The biggest driver of the changes are amendments to the eForms regulation. So there have been 2 amendments, and that's what will drive the biggest changes to a certain extent. At a technical level, we have multiple SDK versions in parallel, and that means that you will find on TED XML, which may differ according to the SDK version. So that's an issue that you handle already. And for the e-senders, it's quite a lot of effort to upgrade between SDK versions, especially the first time they upgrade. We'll see that in a minute. But we encourage the applications to be metadata driven, so to use the SDK components and ensure that your applications are flexible. So if a new SDK comes in, that you can adapt easily to it. So build in your software for change. It's mainly for e-senders, but this can also apply to you. And as you'll see, the rate of change is slowing, and we're working on better governance and planning. So this is a long slide, but you can read it later. We surveyed the e-senders a couple of months ago, and these are some of the comments that came out from what they were looking for. So just to jump through quickly, the e-senders want the SDKs to last for longer, so they change less often, and have a stronger governance, so the changes that happen are consulted better. And they want the SDKs to be more stable, a bit like you. So this is partly to share, so you see what issues e-senders have, and some of them are quite similar to the ones you have. So you have a similar need. For them also, the rules are a big job for them. Oh, sorry, Renata, could you stop sharing? Hang on, I'll share again. You still there? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, got you back again. So the rules are a big deal for the e-senders, because that's what is validating when they come in. That's quite a barrier for them. But for you, normally the rules, the main interest for reusers is that the rules give good quality data that you can use. So you have a related interest in those. And the upgrades are hard work to find out what has changed and to test as they go through. Looking ahead, what they would like also would be to have simpler procedures, so the regulations simplify things. That's a little beyond what we can do at the publications office, but we try to identify whenever we can simplify something to try and make it a bit more accessible. Okay, so the main news of today is the lifespans of the SDK versions. So this we presented to e-senders at the end of March about when the SDK versions are no longer supported. So from your point of view as a reuser, you will notice that there are no longer any notices with these versions. In some cases, for some of the older SDK versions, SDK 1.7, which is very popular, they didn't have many rules. So you have noticed that the quality of the data wasn't really very good in many cases. And as we go up the SDK versions, the quality tends to be better because we have implemented more rules. So the good news I would say for you is that SDK 1.7, 1.8, and 1.9 have no longer been accepted since like last week, basically. So that closes a chapter in old versions. SDK 1.10, 1.11 will continue to be accepted until the end of July, and then they also will be deprecated. And then that will leave us actively in only two SDK versions, 1.12 and 1.13. So what we see that 1.13 is the one that implemented the second amendment to the eForms regulation that added some more fields for some sectoral legislation. It also added 6 new forms for voluntary notices. So these could be below threshold planning, below threshold competitions and results. It added contract completion notices, which can be said what happened at the end of the contract. It also added pre-market consultation notice, which can tell you even before you started planning. So you will see that these types of forms are coming out as well. Their structures are quite similar to the existing ones, but you'll see there's more types of forms going out. That came out in 1.13, which if you see these dates, you'll see that everyone coming off the old SDKs mainly have headed for 1.13 and some of them to 1.12. What will happen next is that we'll have a new SDK around September, 1.14. This is more of a maintenance one. There are no major changes, so it's an incremental one. In parallel, we have SDK 2, which I'll mention later what it means for you. Should mean very little for you, SDK 2, so it shouldn't scare you too much. And then what happens next? There'll be another amendment, which will lead to other changes in SDK. So these dates we'll be looking ahead. If you want to know what's happening behind the scenes, how they are built, there is an eForms governance that's been set up by the European Commission. And it's how the Commission, the member states, us at the Publications Office, how we work together to build new changes that end up in a regulation change or in an SDK. So this is basically the same information, but with the dates. So you can see the first one's no longer accepted. You see the dates of when the next ones will be no longer accepted. So our validation service rejects anything that comes with an older version. But you can see that 1.12, 1.13 are planned to last into next year and the year beyond. And the other SDK numbers are the ones that would be happening later on in the future. So again, as you see, the number of SDK versions is reducing and the lifespan of each SDK version is getting longer. So there'll be less change for you as well. So here's a quick overview of what's planned for September. Pretty much looking at what we have in the scope right now. The biggest changes are improving the rules. So it could be that some of these rules are of interest of you because you've noticed that the data doesn't line up. But for example, if you can have a NUTS, an organization could have a country and then have a NUTS code from another country. So that's a rule that, you know, simply making that information consistent. From a schema point of view, none of these things should change the schema. There's only one which might impact you. The eSender will make the eSenders declare themselves as an organization, and the position of where that eSender is in the notice will move. It probably has no impact on you unless you happen to be interested in eSenders. But generally, the changes are on rules, not on the schema. So for you, the impact should be little or nothing, except in some cases, better data. SDK2, you will see that being talked about. Again, it should have no impact on you because the schema will be the same. So the biggest two changes it will have is this eForms expression language we have created to express the business rules, so validation. And the eForms expression language is also used to for the generation of PDFs and HTML. If you're not using, if you don't care about the rules and you don't care about these view templates, you will not be affected. Again, maybe some of you have something to do with that, but it's very unlikely. And then when the third amendment to the eForms regulation comes, possibly at the end of this year, it will be implemented next year in SDK 2.1. Again, SDK 2 seems like a big thing for you. It should mean very little, but just so you know where you fit in. What's in the third eForms amendment? So this one, when it happens next year, there will be bigger changes for you. Probably the biggest one is that some fields which currently are repeated in each lot could be moved up to exist only once for the whole procedure, for the whole notice. So that's a simplification. So remove some redundant repetition of information that happens in every lot. That would have a schema change. We might see if we can rework or simplify groups of lots and touch points. We rework the way unpublished fields are handled, how the versioning is done. So there's quite a few changes that will happen next year. Again, this is just to get you just a tease of what might happen. We'll have more information when we know it. Again, also an idea to how we can better identify organizations with their identifiers. That can also help you deduplicate an organization with actually the same one each time. This all assumes that DG GROW at the European Commission managed to consult all of these things with the member states, and based with their agreement, there'll be amendment. Based on the amendment, there's a new SDK. And then, as Luca mentioned this morning, there's an ongoing revision of the EU procurement directives, so the 2014 directives. And it seems also the defense directive from 2009. So our colleagues in the European Commission are very busy handling hundreds of replies and consultations and having lots of studies to understand how to proceed. And indeed, the first proposal is planned for the end of next year. So again, no immediate change, but just so you know, this is ongoing. And there is a push for simplification. So we're all looking forward to that. We can reduce the diversity of information and make it much clearer what's going on. I think everyone will benefit, from the buyer all the way back to your customers and suppliers. Okay, that's all we have. There are a few links to different sources of information. So docs.ted.europe.edu is where you have the information about the schema. Again, my colleagues this morning about the APIs, about data.ted as well. And you can also give us feedback through GitHub as well. And there's always the help desk to support you. Okay, I will stop there.
Okay,
back to you, Julie.
Thank you. Okay, so now on to the next presentation. We've already told you that we've launched a survey on the use of the reuse documentation. And the survey is actually still ongoing, so I will post the link to the survey in the chat in a few moments. So you're asked to still participate. We'd like to hear from you. And for now, Nicole will present the preliminary results of the survey. And yes, I'll give the floor to you, Nicole.
Hi there, I'm just going to attempt to share. So let me share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, click one more button. Okay, it's connecting. Oh dear, I hope we don't have a problem like we did earlier. Okay, let me try.
Nicole, should we share it on our side, the presentation? Ah, no.
Yes.
Oh.
Can you
Yeah?
see something?
Should we share?
Yes.
No, we don't see the presentation.
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. I'm not quite sure what's happening. Let me try again. Let me try one more time and then.
If not, we can share it too. We have it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's try one more time.
Yeah.
Ah, now we see something.
You see something? Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so I just need to start. Right, you can see and you can hear me and the presentation. Yeah.
Yes, it's not in the presenting mode yet, but we see the slides.
Okay, it should be coming soon.
Okay.
We good now?
Not yet.
Okay, gosh, it is taking a while.
Maybe on the bottom.
Yes, it looks like it is sharing and it's in full mode on my screen. Okay, let me stop. I'll let you share then. Okay, it's sorry about this. Let me try a different way. Share.
If not, it's okay as well. We could see the slides now. So.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay, let me try again. It just seems to be taking a long time.
Mode, but yeah.
Yeah. How can you see now?
We see again it in the slide mode, but not. It's okay. If you go to the first slide again.
I'm on the first slide in presenting mode.
We see the second one.
Okay.
So there's a delay. Or
maybe you have two screens and you have to share the correct screen. If you have two screens,
yes,
maybe
I don't have two screens. I just have one at the moment.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. But it's everything from beginning. Okay. Any luck? Yes. Can you see me this full screen now? Can you hear me?
now Cindy is sharing, and then we can move the slides along whilst you speak. Is that fine?
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, let me just go back to the presentation. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yeah. All right. Problems with the technology. Right, first of all, to start off, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Nicole Patterson-Jones, and I'm a technical writer in the TED unit. I work across a few of the projects, and yeah, okay, we can go to the next slide. Okay, so for technical writing, we translate more complex technical information into a form that is useful for our users. And in order for it to be useful, we need to know a little bit about the users, who they are, what they're doing, and how they use the documentation to help them do what they're doing. Okay. So in order to find out a little bit more about our users, we sent out a survey. We sent out about 550 emails. And out of those 550, we had 40 replies, which is not quite 10%, but we'll take it for the moment. Okay. So out of the 40 replies, we have 30 users already reusing data, 10 not currently reusing data. However, there were 4 beginners intending to reuse data in the near future, and 6 not intending to reuse data. So, okay, next slide. All in all, we have 34 useful replies from the survey so far. Okay. So first of all, a little bit of information about the reusers. We have your occupation. By far, the most of the responders were in a business or commercial context, 1 citizen journalist, and 11 out of academia. We've added the other category into the commercial because it was people with consultants or something related to the commercial side of data usage. Okay. In terms of where you're based, 5 users were based in Germany, and then the rest mostly in Europe. But we did have 1 respondent from Senegal, which was interesting. Thank you. So the next short category is downloading data. Most of you download data daily, but there are some who download it weekly and monthly and infrequently when needed. Okay. And the time period, the length of which you've been downloading data, 19 people have been loading data for more than 12 months, and the others for a shorter period, 7 to 12, 1 to 6, or less than 1 month. Okay. The methods that people use to download data vary. Quite a few people use more than 1 method. For example, they'll download the notices using FTP, but then use the search API to filter the notices later. Okay. There are quite a wide variety of ways that or applications that people use for post-download processing. Python clearly is the most popular, but there are quite a few different languages or environments that people use to process the data. Okay. Then we went on to some skills and knowledge. We asked people to rate themselves in, first of all, understanding of data manipulation. So quite a proportion consider themselves as being advanced users, and the intermediate and beginner less so. Okay. So the understanding of the search API, 7 rated themselves as good, 19 some knowledge, and 4 with no knowledge at all. Okay. And then the self-rating understanding of the XML data. The biggest category was the intermediate. 15 out of the 34 considered themselves intermediate, 13 high, and 2 low. Okay. So in terms then of the documentation, now we know who you are and what you do. We asked what you find useful about the documentation as it is now. And there was quite a lot of appreciation that there wasn't any documentation at all. And some people found the eForms SDK documentation also useful in terms of finding out what they could search for. Okay. So the comments that people made about what they find difficult, and these will obviously be taken forward and looked at in terms of improving the documentation, that there's not one easy entry point. To provide more explanation from the user perspective, not just from the technical development or developer's perspective. There was some reporting of difficulty understanding schemas and needing more examples, especially more examples in a wider variety of languages. Some people reported difficulty understanding the API and difficulty understanding data types. And these were fairly common across the users. Okay. And then lastly, I just wanted to thank all the people for who completed the survey. There were quite a few of you who were prepared to be contacted in future about your responses. And that's particularly useful because then we can be in contact about some use cases and discuss exactly what it is that you really need. And for those of you who haven't filled in the survey yet, I hope that this inspires you to do so. We'll put the link in the chat, and you will also have the recording of this presentation, and the link is on the last slide. So thank you very much, and I guess we can go forward to the questions now.
Thank you, Nicole. Yes, so before we start the Q&A, we want to hear from you. So we have 3 more Slido questions for you. But maybe just to remind you, we haven't really received many questions in the Q&A. So 3 now. So we have allocated almost an hour for it. So if you have any questions, please use the QR code and put them in. Okay. So now we would like to hear from you. Just like in the morning, we'd like to hear what you thought of the next 2, well, the last 2 presentations. So I will launch the poll. How useful did you think past presentation was on SDK plans? 1 being not at all useful, you learned nothing, and 5 is very useful. I'll let that play out a bit. Okay, we have about 17 votes. I don't know if someone else wants to still give their feedback, but I think I'll soon move on to the next question. Maybe once we reach 20, which is now. Okay, well, thank you for your feedback. Now, the same question with regards to the presentation from Nicole. How useful was this presentation for you? Okay, here I wait again until we reach 20, which also should be the case soon. Okay, there seems to be a little standstill. All right, thank you. So we'll now ask you our last set of questions, and now we'd like to have some of your input. This is now a text question, so you can type. And we would like to ask you what you would like to see brought up in future workshops and meetings. What subjects, presentations? What are your wishes, dreams, desires? What do you want? Just want to leave open for a bit longer because people are still typing. This poll will also leave open for a bit longer when we move to the Q&A. We'll not close this poll, so we can still collect your feedback there. But in any event, you can always contact us with your suggestions for future workshops. Please give the links where to find the action feed of the projects. Okay, so we'll take note. Yes, then maybe could you clarify about the action fiche? But we'll take note and do our own research. And then, yeah, unique identifiers for organizations, register number. Yeah, that's something that comes up quite a lot. How to find shortlisted companies. Okay. More about notices linked by procedure ID and how they are backwards compatible. Then please create an option to contact the companies that are interested in the same tender to form a consortia or cooperation. Okay. Any planned changes to the eForms XML and or bulk delivery. Action documents / annual plans. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Okay, about the automated tendering process. Okay, I think we'll let that play out for a bit longer. But actually, since we don't have too many questions, we can still wait for maybe other suggestions here.
Come back to after the questions and look through them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of questions. Yes. It's a lot of questions.
Yes. Yeah, maybe this one we will take at the Q&A, the question. Okay, so maybe this is a good transition for the Q&A now. So we'll leave this suggestions poll open, but we'll move to the question and answers now. So will you share? Yes. Okay. So the first question we received after the break. I need help to reach the tenders on your website in order to apply. So do you have any steps I can follow to reach what I need? I think this Carmelo can maybe say a few words about TED searches, advanced search, quick search, maybe expert search.
Hello. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The quickest way to search for notice is to use the advanced search page. And do you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So when you go to the TED website, the homepage, from the homepage, you click on the advanced search page. And with this, you can make your query to look for notices. But if you are looking for competition, for example, you select competition and you click search. And then you will have the list of competition. where you can find a short description here, and you can find here the deadline for receipt of tender. And if you go to the notice, this notice contains one lot, and at the level of the lot, you can find the information to access to the procurement document. This is an example. And here you have the address for submission. So I think that I answered to your question.
Okay. Thank you, Camilo. Yes, so the next question, from where can the code list be downloaded as, for example, Excel or CSV files? I think, Carl, maybe you want to say something?
Yes, so my PC is still dead, so now I'm on Luca's PC. But if you can hear me okay, so we don't have the code lists in Excel or CSV. In the docs, on the TED docs, you can see them on the web page. You can list them all there. They're available in the SDK in the generic code format, which you can use from there and rework. But we'll see if there's other ways we can make those available in CSV files. But right now, they're not available in that format. They're in other formats, but not that one.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, I need some help accessing the tenders of the EU website in order to apply. Are there specific types or a guide I can follow to find relevant opportunities? I'd really appreciate your support. I think it's a bit already what Carmelo showed. Right, I think this is, we can already mark this as answered.
Yes, it's the
Or
same.
you want to add something, Carmelo?
It's the same question.
Yes.
I think that, yeah.
Okay. Prior to eForms, there was an old TED expert scheme, which was different to the data being submitted by the contracting authorities. Why did that change?
I would say, I think before Camilla may be able to help, that there was different schemes for reception, different schemes for export, which was slightly different. And the plan with eForms was to have a single schema that worked all the way through the process. So that the schema that was received at reception is the same that is used for publication. So indeed, they could be slightly different, but there's no big benefit of it having multiple schemas, so we just have one now.
Mm-hmm. So that, just to beside this, at the export, our system added some metadata to search the notices. But with the eForm, there is no need for that because we are indexing any field of the eForm to search. So this is why there was a difference with the old eForm.
Okay. Okay, I think we can mark this as answered. All right, can you share the link in the chat where we can find partners to form a consortia related with tenders and the TED platform? Can you show us the steps too? This is, I think, related to the question we've already seen. I'm not sure it would be best to answer this. Yeah.
There's no function to find partners.
Yeah.
Not on TED. So no.
Yes, so
it doesn't exist today.
we don't have this. Okay, I think this is already the last question. Maybe we'll, there's another question. As a reuser, the frequent SDK changes are challenging to handle since it needs frequent rework. I think it's for you, Carl.
Yes, we know it's a challenge for the e-sanders, and we know it's a challenge for you. Hopefully in the presentation, you'll see that the changes should be less, should happen less often. So indeed, we know this is an issue for you. Yeah. So we accept the point, and we know it's a problem.
Okay. All right, maybe we wait for 1 or 2 more minutes, and if no other questions emerge, then I already give the floor to Luca for the closing remarks. But also, like we said, you can always contact us on the help desk, GitHub, anyway you want to reach us, and also the answers of this Q&A will be published in due time on the event website. Okay, I think then I'll give the floor to Luca.
We want to look at the.
Yes, exactly.
As we have a bit of time.
Yes. Actually, we will have a look at the suggestions again if there may be something has moved during the Q&A.
Yes, well, that's okay.
I'll ask my colleague to switch back to the poll. So I'll go to the poll. Yes. Results. Yes. Where were we? Yes, so the next one, please have the Q&A in a document PDF if possible, not having to download them in Excel. Okay, we'll take note. Please, what should we do when the website is down and the deadline is approaching? What should we do in a case of a force majeure, such as the electricity blackout in Spain at the end of April?
That's a legal question for the contracting authorities. So,
okay, and then scroll up, please. Thank you.
Why
Why did you change?
Maybe I can say something on this.
Okay.
On this, when there is a blackout, there's always the possibility that an electronic system fails due, for example, a blackout. Usually what the contracting authority will do is they will inform, usually it is if the bid wasn't able to be submitted. Usually what the contracting authorities will do is they will extend the deadlines. I've seen this before, and what would be relevant is if you have some kind of proof that the system was down on your side, to use this later as proof. But as I said, it happened before, but to my knowledge, how the contracting authorities usually react to this, they extend the deadlines.
Thanks, MC. Okay, last suggestion. Yeah, why did you change the bulk download URL and roll back? Camillo,
yes. Can you please give me more information? The bulk download URL, what was the previous URL and what is the new URL? Because for going live with the new TED, we informed the reuser to use a specific URL, and there was a time to adapt your system to use this URL. So I don't really understand this question. If you can give me more information, what was the URL before and what is the new one?
Okay, so maybe reach out to us again.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the meantime that we were looking at suggestions, we actually got a new question at the Q&A. So probably the final one. would it be a good idea to switch from importing XMLs to open data queries for basic procurement data, as those stay the same regardless of schema changes?
Yes.
Probably would be a good idea. Yeah, Victoria, do you want, Natalie?
Okay, so if I understand this correctly, someone is suggesting to provide the data directly as RDF and not as XML. So yes, this would be a great idea in the future. However, at the moment, I do not think there is enough skills for every member state at every level to be able to implement RDF at this present time. And for that reason, it stays as XML for the time being.
If I may,
Thanks,
I'm not sure
Natalie.
that we understood this question right, Natalie. I didn't understand this question as providing the data as RDF files. So maybe we're mixing things up by assuming that somebody's looking for RDF files. In general, the data as RDF is how can I say, it is decoupled from the version of eForms that we use to create the data, to collect the data. And yes, of course, it is a good idea. And the data is available already in RDF as linked open data. So I don't understand.
No, I do understand now from listening to you. Okay, so it's part of what I said earlier on. The fact that it's available in a seller for queries. Okay, people do not have to download everything and store it and query the information themselves. So it would be more efficient for them to get the information from the seller and from queries rather than importing into their systems the XMLs. Having said that, at this current time, we only have forms 10 to 24 and form 29 in the seller. I think that better answers the question now.
Competitions you covered?
Sorry?
Sorry, so
I would like to
you've covered all the competition ones already. So
yes, 10 to 24.
Every day, which competitions are from this country and in that CPV, for example, I could query the Open Data Service and get the list of all the notices I want, and maybe some other bits of main data. And then if I was interested in the details, I could, go and get the XML on top. But
You
the basic
could even just
get out of the Open Data Service.
I mean, if you did a query, you could query for a certain CPV, and then you could get the address for the procurement document where they can be found. And you can also get the deadline for submission. You could do a search like that, so you have a quick summary straight away.
Yeah, and that would always be independent of the schema. So if any fields moved around, you would be protected from that one. So I think that's a good idea. If you can get what you want from the open data query, that's good. And all the competition's already there with live data. So that's the most interesting.
If I may, Carl, it is interesting somehow that we all tend to think of data as notices. So even if you go to data open data and write a query, the first example that pops in our heads is how are we going to get the notices? We're not looking for notices here. We're looking for answers to questions. Yes, you can get a list of notices, but the point is get the answer to the question directly. So maybe you can write a query to tell you, I don't know, which countries submitted, have notices of this and that type. Or so you're not talking about notices, but you're talking about countries. Or maybe you can write a query to find sums of amounts in a particular configuration of fields in the notice, and so on. So yeah, in general, the open data service opens up all these kinds of possibilities where you don't need to think about notices. You just need to think about the state of public procurement and what perspective you want to look at it from. And you can ask the question directly in the Open Data Service and get an answer.
Okay, thanks, Yannis. Okay, this one seems a comment. It was not the download URL, but the CSV URL of the release calendar. Okay.
Okay. Okay, now it's clearer. I will double check what was defined at the beginning, and maybe there is an issue that I will ask to fix this. Okay, thank you.
So this we'll get back to you, and yeah, like we said, we'll publish the answers of the Q&A in due time on the event website. So we'll have a complete answer for you then. Okay, so now I think it's actually time to hand over to Luca for the final remarks.
So I repeat my thanks to the TED Data Reuser community and to my colleagues who provided the presentations. We hope it's been useful, and we appreciate the feedback you already provided on the presentations, but also on future perspectives. Of course, the topics that you mentioned as possible topics for future users meetings will be taken into account, in particular for the TED Together. I remember November in your agenda. So we'll publish the presentations, we'll publish written replies to the questions. Let me say that our unit, the TED and EU Public Procurement Unit, and the whole Commission, we are fully committed to an open data approach. Our first mission as unit is to, of course, to publish notices, to publish the official journal with public procurement notices. But more and more we see we are publishing data. So there's a shift from the notice as a document, as a publication, to a notice containing data that can be accessed, reused, and exploited for commercial and non-commercial purposes according to the open data principles. I think today we demonstrated that we are gradually moving to, I think it was mentioned, what Berners-Lee, the father of the open data approach and of the web, by the way, called 5 stars approach. We are exploiting linked data technologies, semantic web technologies on TED data. And I think this is a great advancement. We are using the so-called FAIR principle. Data must be findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And now, of course, there's a strong emphasis also on exploiting AI technologies to take advantage as far as possible of the richness of this data that you remember, for those who were there last year, 1 year ago in Brussels, we called superpowers of public procurement data. I would like to thank also our colleagues in the Commission from DG GROW, who are following this very important step, the revision of the public procurement directives, but also the next step will be the revision, the third amendment to the eForms regulation. I would like to thank also our colleagues of Connect and of DG Digit. You know, we are working in particular in this area with the Digital Europe program funding in order to allow you as reuser to really take advantage and fully exploit public procurement data. So we are really happy if we are able to engage with you through what I would call a thriving reusers community. And I really hope to see you back soon. Let's put in online mode or in presence also, in particular this TED Together event that we are planning for the second part of the year. Thank you very much. My colleagues reminds me that there will be an event survey that will be, I think now, is through the QR code. Mm-hmm. Yes. So you see the QR code. This is an evaluation of the event. As I said, we hope it was useful, but please give us any form of feedback in order to continuously improve. If I'm not forgetting anything, again, thanks and see you soon.